this thing. We want to make sure we have some time to maybe do some Q&A with her afterwards. But let's dive right into it. Sylvia, you ready? I'm going to mute some people.
It's like this, like the go.
That he said. Yeah, there we go.
I don't jump off the blocks. I didn't do that. That was not my background.
Okay, well, what was your background? Tell us your story.
I was born. No. You want the swimming version of it?
Well, yeah, we'll start with swimming.
The swimming version of it's good. The rest of it's like, there's lots of, that's a different thing. Like,
we'll save that for another day.
That's like Dateline Frontline stuff. So we'll save it for that. No, so I was, I'm very honest about it. I was an adult onset swimmer. I grew up in northern Michigan on lakes, in between the two largest inland lakes. I always had water around me. There were boats, there were this. I would, in the summer, jump off what we called the green dock, which was this dock on the bend of a river. And it was all I could do to make it back to the ladder. But that was swimming. There were no swim coaches, there were no pools, there were no lessons, there were no nothing. It was, you jumped off the dock to get away from your parents or until the street lights came on and you had to go home and eat dinner. It's what you did to fill the day when you weren't working. And as a teenager, it's what you did to like cool off in between going from one summer job to the next. So I did not grow up swimming. I didn't know really how to swim other than this looked like swimming. So that must be it. And then when I would have been 33, I had my second child, and I just got sucker punched with the, oh, that's a really cute baby, to why do I feel like shit? Like everything sucked. I remember sitting there rocking in the middle of the bed with the baby going, I love this baby. I love my family. I hate this. It was just horrible. And no one ever said, oh, yeah, you might get postpartum depression. You might get you might want to have, no one said anything. It was, you have a nice house and a nice family. Life should be great. So I remember about my 6-week checkup, going to the doctor, or maybe it was a 3-week checkup. And he was all like chipper cheery, like, hey, number 2, you're doing great. Da, da, da. And I just burst into tears. And he's like, oh, okay. Not a problem. Here, we have a few avenues. And he starts writing out a prescription for antidepressants. And I'm like, if I take Advil, it's a big day. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not, for whatever reason, I'm not, don't do a lot of over the counter or prescription meds. So I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. You got to remember, this was 17 years ago, which when we're talking about mental health, especially, was very different. And 17 years prior to that, it was extremely different. Yeah. And I think how we look at treating this was extremely different. But back then it was like, well, here, I'm just going to write you a prescription, we'll make it go away. And I had a few friends who had struggled with going on antidepressants and not being able to get off. So of course I had this massive fear that that was going to happen to me. And he said, well, there's another option. He goes, you can get out every day, do something for yourself that's exercise and gets the endorphins up, that counters, you get a high, but it counters the high from exercising, will counter how low you feel, and hopefully we get you to meet in the middle. Yeah, and I need you to go out and do something physical. I would like you to train for something. So pick something with a deadline, because that's like 6 or 10 weeks out, so that it gets me out every day with a goal. And I'm working towards something versus just this forever. So I left that office. I'm like, I can do this. I'm really good at planning. I fucking can do this. I felt, and I'm like, those people who swim from Alcatraz, they look like they always come out of the water having this amazing, like, I want to do that. So I found a swim coach, and it took me 3 minutes to do my first 25 in the pool. It looked like controlled drowning. I think she was terrified. Other people in the pool were terrified, but I made it, and somehow I kept doing it. Yes, I bought a wetsuit, and I basically ended up going and I ended up doing a sprint triathlon and then an Alcatraz swim. And I went back to the doctor and I'm like, this is fabulous. Oh my God. And he's like, I didn't know you could swim. I didn't know you were a swimmer. I go, oh, I didn't know how to swim. And he was like, this is my doctor. He looks like Itzhak Perlman. Sylvia, I meant like a 5K walk. And I was like, oh, yeah, kind of like you didn't specify that. So, but I loved it. I hated the rest of the triathlon part. Gravity sucks. Don't do it. I don't run. I don't bike. I mean, I can, but I don't like it at all. It's horrible. And from there, I got, kind of fell into the South End Rowing Club. And I still belong to that. And I also belong to the Dolphin Club. And started swimming. I decided I had more fun swimming, got rid of the wetsuit. I think I lost it about week 4. I just kind of got lazy. I was like, I've got enough laundry to do. I'm not washing this thing out too. And it was summer, so I survived and from there. And then I think Susie Dodds at one point was like, hey, we should do this Great Salt Lake swim. And it just kind of rolled.
Yeah. When did you start really pushing distance? How long after you started swimming, I guess?
No, I was not that smart. I think by the time, I swam my entire pregnancy with my third, which was 2004 into 2005. And I was doing club 10 milers, what current assisted. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was that year or the year after that I did like a 9 miler. And then and then it was one of those things, you do some relays, you do some other things. And then all of a sudden you have someone, and I don't talk about swims. I don't ever say I'm doing this swim or that swim. I just kind of go train quietly and do it. But I had someone kind of tap me on the shoulder, actually a couple, like it was like Christine Buckley and Susie Dodge. And you could do this. And it was one of those, I had done an English Channel relay and I enjoyed the water so much. And I remember she's like, you could totally do a solo. You could do one of these swims. And I'm like, so it was one of those quiet encouragement where I think, honestly, we don't do enough of it. We see people either in a wetsuit or in some other, like doing short distances, and we're training for a long distance. And sometimes all they need is the tap on the shoulder. They go, come on, do another mile, or you want to get out of the wetsuit or you want to stay in the wetsuit, that's fine. But it's that there's so many people along the way that I can name that were just helpful, and not like because I'm standing with the poster board going, I want to swim X, but just quiet conversations. And I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So why do you think you gravitated to distances? Why do you swim marathons?
Oh, I'm not fast. No, I'm not fast. There's, it's one of those things where I was also working a ton. So at one point I had more consulting jobs that I could even keep track of. It was like, what city am I going to be in? Where am I going to be? Okay, I'm home this day. And it was also, I worked in tech. And so, 4 or 5 email accounts, 2 cell phones, everything going all the time. This was the only place I could go where I had an actual reason to not take a phone call and not answer an email, and people would leave me alone. It wasn't like, oh, you're spending time with your family, you can take a phone call. Like, no, I really can't, but I will. But if I'm in the water, no, I'm not. So it was one of those things where that was my break, where I wasn't doing laundry while answering an email, while being on a conference call, while helping my kids with homework, it was like, I was doing one thing. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not fast. So there's kind of like no sense of me doing like a 1 mile, 2 mile, because, I probably haven't even found a pace at that point. So, and it's all about finishing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten a medal for anything other than the one they give to everybody just because you showed up. and I will never get a medal for that, which is for speed ever, unless I'm the only one there. It's about finishing. It's about, did you show up? Did you put the work in? And did you finish? I will always show up.
Yeah.
I'm probably one of the people, if you ever talk to anybody in any of my past careers, they'll go, yeah, she works a lot. And if I start something, you know, unless I'm getting dragged out, I will finish it. So distance works. It suits those.
Yeah, for sure. How do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim?
Well, I have, it's never a breakdown on the beach. It's never one of those, like, you know, movie moments, you know, it's never pretty. It's like, you know, tugging a suit out of the crack of your butt. And you're like, I'm usually just like, where is the dry sand? Where, like, just get me up. Get me back on the boat. Let me, you know, it's usually this, it's not this feeling of elation. I always thought it would be this big, like, aha, I did it. Most of the time it's, oh, thank God. Okay. All right. What's the schedule? Where are we going? What's next? What are we doing next? You know, it's okay. We've got to get this cleaned up. We've got to get that. It's just this, because to me, it's not about the finish. It's, did I show up? Did I show up? And usually I remember very clear on Catalina, I remember looking at my crew and everybody's all, and I was just calm. I go, yeah, let's get this done. Let's finish this. Like, that's it. Like, let's finish this. You know, finish it like cheesecake. Just let's finish this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's interesting how it seems like your mind, you're like the person that's like, okay, what's, you know, it's not, okay, now I'm finished. Okay. But okay, where are we going
okay,
next?
now I've got to get to the airport. I've got to do this. I've got to make these phone calls. Okay. Who did, you know, it's this,
allow yourself
okay, my time is over. You know, my time is over. I'm now out of the box. So yeah.
Interesting. Can you tell us the swim that you're most proud of?
It goes, yeah, it ebbs and flows. Probably Catalina, because I mean, I did finish it. So.
Tell us about it.
I learned afterwards that it was not, my boat crew was awesome. So, you know, I encourage people to have ex-military intelligence and ex-military operatives on their boat, because it's about the mission. That's all I said to them. I said, we have a mission. You use their language. This is the mission. I need to get from this point to this point. And at any point, it is not about my comfort. It is about finishing. That's the mission. And your job, even if I whine or cry or whatever, is to say, that's not the mission. Your comfort is not your mission is to finish. So I guess there was a lot of interesting crap that happened on my boat. I was slow. You know, Catalina is this wonderful swim. You start at 11 o'clock at night. So first of all, not everybody likes swimming in the dark. I love swimming in the dark. It's like, because you're ignorant. You can just and you just swim. And that's, you know, really what you're supposed to do. And Tina Neal, who was fabulous, said, do not look up. Don't ever look up. Don't look at the finish, because you're not there until you can see the color of someone's t-shirt on the beach. I did not know that there was a small craft advisory storm. I got in the water and I'm swimming up and swimming down and swimming up and swimming down. And I'm like, oh, this is just the water in Catalina. This is like outside the gate. I've done this. I haven't done it for this long, but I just figured this is what everybody gets. I did not know you could get smooth water. And I also, in the back of my mind, I think the pilot took a look at me and was like, yeah, we'll take her out, put her in the water, let her swim for a little bit, and then, you know, we'll be done. So, and it was, I remember the sun coming up and getting a goggle change. I had not been counting my feeds. It was going all right, but I'm like, this, Jesus Christ, this is long. What the hell? Like, I was at that point, you range from being like, who the hell talked me into this? Like, this is stupid. Like, I need a better hobby and better friends. Like scrapbooking, quilting, reading by the fire, cooking. Like, my friends are stupid. Like, I was cursing Susie and Rainey, and like, I'm just like, but I'm swimming because I've got to finish this. And I do remember at one point I was just so frustrated because finally by about mid-morning things had settled down. So I swam all night in this, and that's like, oh, well, now the swim starts. And I remember thinking for 1 minute, because I don't wear a watch, no watches ever. They don't help you. And I remember thinking to myself, I've been out here for 20 hours. I probably am going to have the longest Catalina. I will be the Jackie Cobell of Catalina. And I love Jackie, but I wasn't ready to be Jackie Cobell. I don't think I could handle it. And I just remember thinking I had like this 30-second period after a feed where I was starting to swim, and I was like, do I really want to do this? Because I'm going to have the worst time. Nobody knows I'm doing that. There's like 8 people who know I was swimming. But if everybody finds out and I'm that slow, I will be the laughing stock of the open water swimming world. And I was just like, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, wait a second. Rainey Pierce had shit conditions in the English Channel, and it took her 18 hours or 17, I think. Christine Buckley swam through like some amazing force whatever storm when she did the English Channel back in the early 2000s, and a guy died that day. Susie Dodds took 18 hours to do Catalina because I think she had done from the mainland out. And I'm like, you know what? Nobody gives them any shit. I'm just going to keep swimming. But I guess there's an observer on the boat who was like very fast when she swam it and was like, well, why is your swimmer taking so long? Like, I have plans. We need to like pull your swimmer because I have plans. Like, she needed to be back at the dock because she had a date that night. And my crew was like, yeah. So they kind of dispensed with her nicely. I think I almost vomited on her when I got on the boat. It would have been appropriate. And yeah, I mean, that was one of the ones that I finished, and I was just like, I was really proud that I finished, but I was most proud of my training that I had, because I had gone into training with a plan. I had really detailed it out, like what I was going to do every week, how I was going to train. But it was also kind of for me a message, because I had watched for the previous 2 or 3 years at the South End, people training for marathon swims. And oh my gosh, if you're training for a marathon swim, you can't possibly volunteer. You can't help with the dishes. You can't help take a boat down. You can't help do this because you've got to save your shoulders. And don't you understand? I'm training for a marathon swim. Mm-hmm. And I was like, maybe they're right. So I spent that year, I race directed, I did registration, I volunteered my ass off at the club, and then I would go swim. So what I learned was, yeah, you may be training for a marathon swim, but the world doesn't revolve around you, because not everybody else is training for a marathon swim. Your hands are needed, your time is needed. And if these people are helping make an institution to help you, you need to help too. And so it was one of those things where I was just like, people know, there are 2 one of them extremely famous marathon swimmers that I almost kicked off a club swim, because she couldn't be bothered to take a boat down. I said, then we can't be bothered to pilot you. She begrudgingly pushed the boat. Yeah, so that was the big thing, is like, but it also was exhausting, but I was really proud of the training. And I was thankful. That swim was not about me getting across. I did the swim, but that swim was to me about a lot of people who helped make swimming possible. Mm-hmm. The women who sued the South End Rowing Club when it was an all men's club. I remember coming back and seeing Trudy, one of the women who sued, to be let in. It's to people like Suzanne Heim-Bowen, who was swimming when, you know, she was the only woman swimming. And there's so many like that, that I think we forget to say, I enter this water only because you cleared the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I want to hear more about your story, but part of your story, I think, is how you got into piloting and stuff. So maybe you want to tell us, it feels like a nice segue maybe to talk a little bit about
Oh,
how
sure.
you...
Now you want to talk about failure.
Well, actually, I do have a question about what haven't you finished?
Oh, that's painful. I started piloting because I failed the English Channel. I trained for it. I felt I was ready for it. I'd had some, I'd already had slap tear repair on my left shoulder, coming off of an English Channel relay. I'd swam Catalina on it, thought it was fine. Was training, went over, when was that? Like 2016 or so, to swim the English Channel. I had the most beautiful conditions. Like, I had a straight line all the way. I would have had like a straight line with a little tiny hook at the end. Of course, Chloe McCardle plowed past me at one point, and I'm like, what the ha, that's not nice. Like, seriously, I was like, that's not, like, people should not move their arms that fast. That's just wrong. Like, and I've seen her swim. She swam off our boat before. She's very funny. But I was just like, yeah, no. And I would have had an amazing time. So Catalina, I was like 16 and a half hours, and the English Channel, I was on track to finish in under 12, which, okay, anybody who knows me, that's not my swim time. Like, that is an anomaly, gift of the gods. And I let them down that day, because I was just entering the separation zone at right around 5.5 hours. And it was clear. I mean, it was daylight, it was beautiful. And it got to the point, they ended up finding that I had nerves in my neck that were getting pinched. So every time I went to move my left arm, I was doing this one arm stroke and kind of dragging my left arm. And at some point, my crew was just like, hon, there is no amount of painkiller we can give you. Like, we've given you the max of what we can give you. That's, you know, and that's it. And this one was called, and you know, I think, again, only 4 or 5 people knew that I was swimming it, and that was fine. And it was heartbreaking. I mean, I got on the boat and I was like, that's the first big swim I hadn't finished. I came back, got my neck worked on, got it all cleared up, and I didn't, you know what, the politics of open water swimming have really changed in the past few years, and not in a positive way. I'll be very honest. I did not feel welcome at the club I had joined in 2003. You know, you were either part of this clique or this clique or this clique or that. And it's like, I just wanted to swim. And it was very hard to find a way to go in and not, you know, from time to time, just not have someone up your craw. And it was like, I don't want to feel like I have to go on defense trying to walk in the door. I didn't want to go back to the club. And my business partner at the time was like, I have this little boat. Why can't we just go? I'll take you out. We'll just go over here across the San Francisco Bay. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't just go swim wherever you want. And he's like, yeah, you can. So this was a big thing, because I'm so used to swimming with the club. We swim where the club swims, when the club says we can swim, and you do this, and that's all you do. So I started swimming, and then all of a sudden people would see, you know, I would post, oh, I swam today. And people were, oh, where did you swim? Well, I want to come and swim with you. So then it was all of a sudden, it was like, people want to come and swim off the boat. And then it was, oh, I can't. Then I kind of learned, like, oh, you need to be licensed. You have to have a license. You need to have over the side insurance. You need to have all these things. And so I was like, I've passed SEC exams. I've passed, you know, whatever. I'm like, oh, I can do this. So I went and became licensed. And I'm licensed to 100 nautical miles offshore. And I'm working on my master captain's license right now. And I also teach. So I'm helping, I often tutor and teach other people who are looking to pass their captain's exams, because there are 4 exams. You take them in one sitting. Yes, I passed all mine the first time, but not everybody does. Some people go back and take their exams 2, 3. You're only allowed to take it 3 times in a year, and then you have to wait a year. And I know people who have not passed their exams, and you have to pass all 4 at once. And so I work with people a lot to like teach them, okay, what is it that you're getting hung up on? So, and then from there, I enjoyed not being wrapped in the politics and the confines. So I still love the clubs. They're amazing places. And I would say they're actually a great place to get people started and going. But the clubs aren't always for everybody. Yeah. And I think that's true anywhere, whether it's a club going off the beach or there's an actual physical building. And it changes over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then we grew up piloting. So, a couple of boats, a couple of captains, a couple more, another captain or 2 coming on board, and just trying to really, I think I love the marathon swims, but I also love people who come in and they do their swim, their Everest. That might be an Alcatraz. It might be getting in the water. They meet their swim, and then I want every swimmer to come out and going, what else can I do? Yeah. It's like, oh, we have a plan for that.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, that is one of the most, as a coach, that's one of the best things for me is when somebody's like, oh yeah, that was really cool. What else? Yeah, what else can I do?
And I always tell people, especially the hardest swims to do is your first 6 hour.
Yeah.
Those are the hardest, and people are like, they're so afraid of the 6 hour. And I love taking people on their first 6 hours. It's like, oh, I have ways to get you through this. I will whisper you through this.
Yes.
Ask Elizabeth Almond. Oh my God, poor Elizabeth in her 6 hour. She was screaming. She was a good egg, but it was just like, I had to pull out every trick in the bag for that one. But she did great. Look what she's done. And she's so kind. Yes. But yeah, I think I always look at every swimmer who's showing up, whether they're there on their first swim doing 1 mile, they're doing a marathon swim or somewhere in between. They had the guts to show up. They've worked to show up. I need to meet them with every level of preparation and professionalism because that's the best I can do to show my respect for what they've done. They've put in the work and they've shown up. And being professional, being organized, being safe, following not just our rules, but the association's rules, the maritime Coast Guard rules that I see violated left and right that make me crazy. I need to show up and it's a sign of respect for me. And I think anything less than that would be disrespectful to the swimmer. And I don't know everything they've brought to that swim, but as you know, it's more than any of us know.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So, you talked a little bit about the tricks in the bag. Is that something you developed on your own, getting yourself through your own swims? Basically, I want to get to like, how do you get through the hard stuff? Is it the tricks, or is there other things?
Well, when I was doing my 8 hour, I had people kind of would come out and swim I think Rainey came out and swam for a little bit. Susie came out for the last hour and I'm like, no, I'm good. It's like 7. She's like smacking me on the feet. She's like, no, you're not. This 7 is not 8. That's what she would say. She said there was a guy, Duke, at the Dolphin Club who told her, 5:59 is not 6. Every swimmer's different. I always ask a swimmer, what motivates you? What works for you? What doesn't? I think having a great deal of empathy, but also strength. Mm-hmm. It's like when you're in the water, I like to say you have Swiss cheese brain going on. Like you've been swimming long enough and it's like it's like you don't, like one person talks to the swimmer. And it is this trying to channel where they're at. They've got this. I very rarely have a swimmer in the water who I'm like, okay, this is not going to happen. I think a lot of people get in the water and they want it and their body knows what to do. And then their brain gets in the way of like, this is dumb. You could be doing something better, like sleeping in a warm bed, having a glass of, like their mind or you can't do this. I've seen the ones where all of a sudden the swimmer's doing great and then just has this meltdown of self-doubt. And it's like, a woman swimming from Alcatraz. I mean, it's not a marathon swim, but she's like a very large woman and I was angel swimming with her and we're just chatting and I'm like, okay, we're going to do 50 strokes. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I remember we're getting towards the end and she burst into tears. She goes, I can't do this. I can't do this. And she's sobbing. I can't do this. And I'm like she's 100 yards away.
Wow.
Grabbed her, turned around. I'm like, that's Alcatraz. You left can't out there. If you want can't, you need to swim back out and get it because you're going to finish this. And turned her back around, sent her in. And I just remember I could hear her crying. And I heard from her later, she's like, yeah, my parents never thought I could do this. My coworkers, this and that. I'm like, yeah, those people don't belong on your swim. Like you need to, when you jump off the boat, they stay on the boat in a bag somewhere, but they don't belong with you in the water. So a lot of times when somebody's in the water, it's like, what are all the things they brought on their swim that don't belong? And it's like trying to get rid of those things and at the same time giving them the things that they need. And sometimes it's just, you're fine. And other times it's like laying on the swim platform, looking them eye to eye and going, no, I need you to do 50 freestyle strokes, find your pace, you're almost done. And you just don't know what it is, but you've seen that in coaching.
Yeah, but yeah, you get to see the hard parts.
Well, there's the vomiting.
Yeah, right. Let's see, what's been the hardest part of the pandemic for you?
I'm going to steal this from Susie only because we said this the other night. It's like, I did not become fluent in Spanish. I did not lose 20 pounds. I did clean every closet in the house, which was good. I think the hardest part was, I'm a small business owner. We were, charter boats were not allowed to be on the water until June 5th. And so it was illegal. I had my 50th birthday on May 16th and I wanted to swim and I could not swim. And what I found even more incredulous is that there were not people out swimming, but there were charters illegally out with swims in April and May. And not only do I find that it sucks as a small business owner because you think everybody needs to be playing by the rules.
Yeah.
Welcome to life. Not everybody plays by the rules. They don't believe the rules apply to them. So, we have basically lost 90 days of business. And you're rescheduling people. I was really concerned for our Tahoe people. And basically we made the decision early on that, hey, listen, no harm, no foul. If you need to roll your swim to the following year or to 2022, there's no penalty, there's no fee, there's no nothing. We will just roll it for you as a courtesy. Let's find you a date. You need to be safe. And I know not everybody did that. I think it's what we tried to do. We thought it was the right thing, tried to do the right thing by the swimmer. So we did have a Tahoe season, although it was somewhat abbreviated in terms of it was condensed and we didn't have as many swims. We had swimmers from New Zealand, Germany, Canada, a number of places, New York, hi, who couldn't come in. I loved your kids, who couldn't fly in. That's okay, they'll swim next year. The water's not going anywhere. So that's kind of been the hardest part, is just trying to manage the business and also manage expectations. And now we came back we left Tahoe, and I think the air quality, we couldn't even see past the end of the dock. The fires are so bad. And we came back to San Francisco. I think everybody, well, some of you may be too young to know this reference, but the San Francisco Bay looks like a really bad Cheech and Chong movie from the 1970s. It's pretty well smoked out. So we're waiting. Murder hornets didn't happen. Earthquakes might still happen. There was a case of the bubonic plague up in South Lake Tahoe. So we're just trying to skirt it. But I think that the hardest part has just been people's dreams got put on hold. And that's minor. I think the hardest part has been watching friends who have parents in assisted living facilities that they weren't able to see. I have friends who know people who have passed away, friends who have lost their jobs that are never coming back. So I feel extremely fortunate. So for me to even say what's been the hardest part, you know, I've been lucky. It's been an inconvenience. That's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Does anybody out there have questions for Sylvia? Do you want to come off mute and ask Sylvia some hard questions?
No, not Jamie. She's got to ask a hard one.
No hard questions. I have a question, like as a pilot and, you know, all the swims that you do, what are some things that swimmers can do to kind of make your life easier? Or like what drives you crazy that we may be doing that we don't even know about?
Good question.
Yeah, I think that is a great question. We've learned a lot. We've learned about, actually, as a pilot, I've learned how to communicate better, well in advance of the swim. What you need to bring, here's, you know, what not to bring. Please don't bring 6 big beer coolers on the boat. Please don't bring, you know, and also we've had to communicate like, hey, listen, I mean, this is going to sound really prickly, but I honestly take your safety seriously. It is the number one thing it is the thing that wakes me up at night, thinking about the things that could go wrong. From, you know, did I change all the sensors in the boat? Are all, you know, like the maintenance on the boat, things like that. But your safety is my number one concern. So it's the swimmers we've had some swimmers show up and their crew that treat it like a party boat, where the crew's not even looking at the swimmer. And it's like, I'm the only one looking at the swimmer. And I'm like, what are you, like, your swimmer needs to get fed. Like, you need to get their next feed ready. So to me, it's less about the swimmer, as sometimes the swimmer hasn't really prepared their crew for what the job is. And I've seen other swims go off where it's like, it looks like a big party, and maybe the swimmer's going to get fed, maybe they're not. Maybe the swimmer's going to swim into the back of the boat, maybe they're not. It's just, I'd say it's less about the swimmer and more about the crew and how the crew is going to be with the swimmer. Most of the time you get the swimmer in the water, and once I know, like, hey, what side do you like to breathe on? Because my job is, number one is safety, and number two is your comfort. Past that, I will deal with the crew safety and everything else, but as long as I've got swimmer safety and swimmer comfort, chances are we're gonna have a successful swim. But I would say it's less about the swimmer and more about the crew. Yeah. But, and long feeds, the swimmer taking long feeds, like these 3-minute feed social, like I've had people, oh, well, read that message to me, read this. It's like, no, you can read these messages later. Do your feed and get swimming. Like, you know, I've seen 45 minutes added to a swim because of long feeds and
chit-chatting.
Yeah. Sometimes it's fine, but you know, and sometimes they need it, but most of the time it's like, there's a reason they're not swimming, and I usually find, well, I was cramping or this. It's like, okay, tell me. So
yeah, communication. So the swimmer communication to the pilot sounds like a key.
Yeah, and I just finally I'll ask a lot. Like, I'll ask the observer or ask the crew, can you ask your swimmer? Or if they won't, I'll finally go out and ask.
That's a good one. Any other questions? Yeah, it was. Any other questions for Sylvia?
So I have one that I'm in a river swim, hopefully if there's no thunderstorms this Friday. It's an 8-mile river swim.
Woo!
We're going out with the current and back against it. And that part of it makes me a bit nervous, but I figure I'm just the starting point for me is enjoy the swim. When you get to the current, you'll deal with it. Don't go crazy. But if you have any advice on how handling like swimming into a current that would not make me so overtired that.
Well, I would say if you know you're getting a ride down, don't do a lot of excessive anything, because if the current's going to take you, the current's going to take you, so that when you make that turn, you're kind of like, okay, my swim's going, and you just have to be patient. The shore will come to you as long as you keep swimming. Like, if you just keep going, you'll make it. If you stop, you won't. I mean, that's kind of where it is. And it's one of those things where, to me, I'll often do it, or I'll put swimmers in a treadmill where I know they're against the current and they're not going to make any progress. I'll make them swim there for 40 minutes because it's a lesson of turn your head off. Just completely turn your head off. Don't count strokes. Don't sing songs. Just think about your stroke. Is it efficient? Is it this? Am I having a good time? Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful tree. Look at those people. They're as long as because here's the deal. Your body knows what to do. You've been training. Your body knows how to swim. Your mind, you just have to turn it off. You'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Last chance for questions for Sylvia. Otherwise, I'll do my favorite closing questions.
No question. I just want to tell Sylvia, hi, I love you.
Hi, I love you too.
All right. What's your advice to aspiring marathon swimmers, Sylvia?
Show up. No matter what anybody says, show up. It's your swim.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. I like that. As Chris was pointing out in the chat too, just be a finisher. Know that I'm a finisher. If you're kind of going in with that, I think that's
yeah. Let's finish this. Finish it like cheesecake.
That's great. All right. Who's inspired you in your marathon swimming career?
Oh my gosh.
You pulled the Jamie Monahan. I'll send you a list later. That's what she did.
No. You know what it is? It's that list grows every day. If I feel like I'm at the Oscars and you're thanking your agent, but it's it's the people who have been showing up for years. Frida Streeter, Allison Streeter, Suzanne Heimbone, Susie Dodge, Rainey Pierce, Helen Smith, Haley Brandt, Emma France, all sides of Tracy Clark, Ned Dennison. I always tease Ned. I'm like, Ned, my goal in life is to have a signature line as long as yours. Anybody who's received an email from Ned knows this. I once doctored my signature line to be as long as his with very funny things in it. He didn't appreciate it. Oh, you're on mute. Shannon's on mute. Get off mute, Shannon.
Unmuting myself. There we go.
There you go.
Ooh. I said I want to see that. I want to see the funny signature line with her.
Oh yeah, it
Lost in the ether.
And just to be clear, I love Ned and Catherine, and they have been amazingly sweet to my daughter who's in university in Ireland. And thank you, Ned and Catherine, for adopting my 20-year-old.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Very
but
cool.
Lots of inspiring people, and the people who I think make it possible every day for us to remain swimming safely, swimming with integrity by the rules. Those are the people that we don't think about often, and I think we owe a lot of thanks to.
Yeah, that's a good one. I could talk to you all day. I know you've got a million stories, but I want to, make sure and be
Got
respectful
stuff
of
to
people's
do.
time. Yep. So thank you very much for your time today, Sylvia. I appreciate it. It's so
Thank
cool to talk to you.
you.